Hello guys and welcome back to All for United. Apologies for the slightly late start. What a crazy week it's been for United fans. But we're not going to talk about any of that. We don't need to. We've got a positive show tonight talking about two players that are actually playing pretty well. So let's just get straight into it, shall we?
Click subscribe to get daily Manchester United content from Passionate Reds, only on All for United.
And then we are joined by Amy and Tom. How are you both doing?
Very good, thanks, mate. Yourself?
Good. Well, that's not a good question to be asking. Not a good question to be asking United fans at the moment, is it? As I said, be sure to get your comments in, like the video and all of that jazz. I want to talk about anything but United at the moment, so I'm going to come to you both on your respective clubs, because hopefully you're feeling a little bit more positive than United fans are at the moment. So obviously you two played each other at the weekend, a 2-1 win for Birmingham. Amy, how are you kind of feeling about Swansea this season? Are you kind of ahead of expectations, or whereabouts are you at the moment?
Yeah, it's been a funny one. So obviously Steve Cooper went in the summer, so we've got Russell Martin come in. We've had kind of quite a big overhaul of players, lots of new players, some loan signings, obviously Ethan, who we're going to talk about. And it was a slow start. I think it's kind of like 5 losses, 5 wins and a draw sort of thing. Not great. Obviously kind of used to being more up in the playoff places, but we knew we'd have to be patient, trust the process, all that kind of stuff. The game against Birmingham, I'm sure we'll come on to it, but, we had 2 pretty big wins just before it. I think the players were kind of a bit exhausted by what we saw. But yeah, it's been okay. Like, we're getting there. It's starting to click. When it clicks, it's really, really good. It's just about it clicking more often and getting those results in. That is the worry now. So yeah, not too bad. Not too bad. Yeah.
And then Tom, obviously for yourself, I'm sure you're happy. Obviously after the weekend, a 2-1 victory there. How are you feeling as a Birmingham fan at the moment?
Yeah, definitely a lot happier because at the time we were in a rough patch. No goal in 6, no win in 7. So it was quite bleak. We're going into a game against a very informed side as well. And I was quite fascinated by Swansea before the game anyway, because this new sort of fluid football that they're playing, they don't like to take the ball off the ground, I suppose, if you will. But yeah, I suppose we'll get onto the game a bit more in a bit. But yeah, we had to force them to play differently, which was a new side of Blues that I hadn't really seen before. We had to pretty much force you to play like the way we play, which is long ball constantly. And yeah, it's pretty ugly football, but we seem to get through games mostly. And to be honest, we've been unlucky in the ones we've lost this season. So we're definitely an improved side compared to more recent seasons where we're constantly fighting relegation. And hopefully we can go on a bit of a run now after a positive result of the weekend.
Yeah, fingers crossed. It would be nice. I'm from Worcestershire, so I am quite close to Birmingham as well. So it'd be nice to see some Midland sides stick around anyway. You both briefly mentioned it there. It was one of my first kind of questions really about the kind of systems that you play, because I'm not really an avid watcher of the Championship, so I wouldn't even know where to start with your respective systems. So Amy, I'll come to you first again on this one then. So what kind of system do Swansea play, and where does Laird kind of fit into that? Obviously we know as United fans he can play fullback, he's played centre-back in the 18s. What system do you play and where does he fit in amongst that?
So he's playing as a wing back for us at the moment. The system is very much passing, holding on to possession, not many long balls, like you say, kind of one-touch passing, that sort of thing. Poor Neil and Stu. But he's fitting in really well down the wing, mainly playing on the right, but he has been switched over to the left at points, I believe, as well. But yeah, we're playing quite wide. It's nice football. People say it's football done properly. Like, it is nice to watch. Even if we lose, people are fairly happy, which is weird as a Swansea fan, because the last 2 years with Steve Cooper has been ugly, like really, really ugly. So it's nice to get that sort of Graham Potter-esque style football back that the fans have been wanting. So yeah, lots long way to go though. Definitely a long way to go.
And Tom, obviously for yourself, because I think when we monitor the kind of loan players a lot on this channel. Obviously, we've got quite a few up and down the leagues with Galbraith and Garner out in League One and the Championship as well. But whenever I've seen Chong, when I just check the lineups for Birmingham and Chong's playing, it seems like he's playing down the centre. Is that right? Is he playing down the centre or is he playing?
Yeah, it's a bit of a mixture, really. He does. I'd say more than any other player on the pitch, he's given probably the most free role compared to any of our other players. We've seen him in at least 3 different roles. We've seen him out wide. Mostly, we tend to see him in that number 10 role. That's probably his most common position in our system. Or occasionally, depending on substitutes normally, he can play as sort of a shadow striker, and he will just be sort of looking for those runs in behind, hanging off Juki, who'll be looking to play those sort of balls, hold up play and look for Chong. So we've definitely experimented with what sort of role we can put him in. But no, normally he does play down the centre and occasionally is shifted out to the left. And I mean, if you watch the goal that he assisted for Deeney at the weekend, he does drift out wide for that, despite playing in the middle for the majority of the game. So yeah, he's definitely given a free role and he's relishing it this season. He's only, to be honest, he only had 1 or 2 bad games. Overall, he's probably been our star player of the season so far, bar maybe one or two others.
Yeah, it's interesting. He's has put a comment there that he played down the middle in the academy. He did until he got to 23s, and then they started experimenting him on the wings. And then when he came into the first team, we started putting him out wide, and it never really. I'll come back to kind of that later on because I do have reservations over Chong. I've got to be honest. So one thing I just wanted to ask it, obviously with younger players, there's, especially in the Premier League, there's this kind of you've got to be patient with them. Coming from the Premier League, like a Premier League club, do you have to be patient with these players, do you feel? Or is there kind of that expectation when you sign them, just because they're from a big club? Do you feel like they've got to hit the ground running because they've come from Manchester United? Either of you can answer on that one.
Well, I don't think so. I think there's definitely the expectation that they're talented. Whether they're like a well-rounded player who's going to fix your problems is the next thing. You know, often they are very young and they haven't had much game time. And I think there is a respect for that. But yeah, I think there's an expectation of them to have a level of ability that's maybe higher than some of the people maybe have come through your academy or other players you've got from kind of lower teams. Yeah.
I think it's weird because you look at the 2 signings, they're 2 very, very different players, obviously, because they play different roles, but also the anticipation behind them and the reasoning for them. So you look at Ethan Laird going to Swansea, it's not really much of a surprise because he was at MK Dons last season with Russell Martin anyway. Whereas with Chong, it was sort of like there was European clubs in for him. Why has he come to Birmingham City? So that's sort of the difference you could make between the 2. But I feel like the reason why he's come to Blues is probably because of the role we wanted to play him in was a selling point. And also in the sense of you'll probably want Championship football because you'll see so many talents coming through now in the EFL and they're relishing it in the Premier League when they get there. So I feel like he'll have definitely Chong coming to Blues he'll have done that as a statement to show that he can make it in the second tier. And that's always a great stepping stone to get yourself into the Premier League these days, probably the most common one at the moment. So yeah, I can see that reasoning behind it. But it was a shock because it's like, you know, he's supposed to be this Man United wonder kid that's not really hit the ground running yet. Has made brief appearances. I know he'd had like a brief appearance against PSG in the Champions League. So that's obviously a huge appearance to have on your resume in itself. So yeah, it's definitely a big shock that he's now playing for Birmingham City rather than against PSG in the Champions League. So there we are.
Yeah, it's interesting, is it? Because he obviously made his Champions League debut, I think, if I remember rightly, against PSG in that famous night for us in Paris. And Chong was part of this group with us where you had Angel Gomez, Mason Greenwood, Rashford had just come into the side about 2 years before that. He was part of that team, but Chong was always the one that was the forgotten guy, if that makes sense. He was always the one that was the outsider. Gomez was the one that was really highly rated. Obviously, we've let him go now. Just look at this comment here. Chong is starting to do... I'm going to come back to my opinions on Chong because obviously I don't watch him week in, week out at the moment, but I've always had reservations of him watching him in the academy. But I'll come back to that.
Mm-hmm.
So, when you were linked with him back in the summer, both of these players, had you heard of them prior to signing them, and were you kind of excited when you thought, oh, is it Man United youngster coming to our squad, or was it like, I don't know who this kid is, but I'll give him a go kind of feeling?
Yeah, I didn't know the name, so to speak, but obviously I've got a massive soft spot for United, and any player that comes through that academy, I'd always give the time of day for sure. But no, I hadn't had the name. But yeah, what about you, Tom?
I'd had heard of both of them, but Chong more so. That's probably down to me being a big FIFA fan anyway. So yeah, you'll always sign those sort of wonder kids on loan and whatnot. But yeah, Chong I'd already heard of because you'd see him make brief appearances for United, but it just nothing would ever happen. It was always very stale whenever he did actually make an appearance for United. Occasional bits of sort of, I suppose you could say, technical ability, and he just always gave off that vibe of a luxury player. And certainly when he signed for Blues, I thought, okay, this could go one of two ways. This could either go really, really well or really, really badly. And I suppose I did worry about sort of injury-wise because his record is up and down. But so far, he's completely sort of blew me out the water in a way. It's I didn't expect him to have the work rate he has and also that work ethic that goes along with it, because out of any player on that pitch, he works the hardest. And you don't normally get that from luxury players. He's up and down, winning the ball constantly. And to have the defensive ability he has, being such an attacking player anyway, was sort of a shock to the system. So I've been overly impressed, and it's in the second tier, I'd say the level we're at, he certainly suits it, and he's impressing a lot of people. Whether he'd still be able to make that step to the Premier League yet, it probably won't be at United, let's face it. But if it was at sort of a mid-table side, then I think they've got a good player on their hands who can do a job. You just need to give him the freedom that he wants, and he can shine for sure. Then I suppose briefly on Ethan Laird, I'd always seen that he was sort of a promising fullback with a bit of pace, bit of strength, and was very highly rated in League One the season before, and I'd only heard good things. And to be honest, from watching him play the other day, I thought first half he was solid. Second half, we just ran rings around him, to be honest. It was really it was strange. It just looked like his head had dropped, and I think that was just down to the game itself and tiredness. So both very impressive players anyway.
Yeah, Amy, do you just want to quickly touch on that, obviously, from the game then? So obviously I know it was 2-1. I think, did it go 1-1 and then back to 2-1, I think, if I remember?
There was an offside goal first by Belgium.
Which was tight, really tight.
It got to 1-1, and I have to say it's quite unusual for Swans to let a draw go. It was disappointing, but I think, considering we had taken 3 points off Cardiff and West Brom, and it was all within about, it's always within about 6 days, isn't it? And you could just see they just didn't have anything left in the tank. And like you say, we were being forced to play a slightly different game of football, and the long balls weren't accurate. Ethan Laird had a few big touches which led to there were things that if we had played you before those 2 games, it may have been different.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it wasn't. We weren't awful, but it wasn't what we've seen the last kind of 3-4 fixtures. So, but I have to say, I will comment on Chong. I think, particularly in the second half, like you say, he fit that number 10 role really, really well, and he really controlled the game where the ball went. I thought it was very strong. I think the first half we got a bit lost, but I think it was a bit more equal in the first half, maybe. But yeah, when he really controlled the game, I think without him, you wouldn't have had as much direction and as much.
Oh, definitely not.
Going forward. So I was really impressed with him, I have to say. But, the result didn't go our way, but we'll try again next time.
Yeah, it's interesting, this kind of conversation about Chong being a 10, because if you follow United, Van der Beek's not getting a shot anywhere. So we've got, obviously, Fernandes can play there, Pogba can play there, Van der Beek, Lingard, and even if he went out on the wing, you've got Rashford, Martial, Greenwood, Sancho, Ronaldo can play there. Even our loan players like Ahmad and Palestri that's gone out on loan. Alanga, I actually think, is ahead of Chong as well in our academy. So we've got so many options. So this kind of talk of Chong, and I've seen it. The reason why I wanted to do this show this week as well was there's been a lot of talk, obviously, because Chong particularly and Laird are playing quite well. I'll come back to Laird in a second. But because Chong's playing well, we should bring him back. And it's like, no, you don't want to be ruining a player's development.
It's far too soon.
100%. I just want to get a kind of feeling again, like I said, because I'm quite intrigued by the championship. Is there any? We had an academy show a couple of weeks ago with a brilliant guy who has watched the academy for decades, and he kind of spoke about there are times when a younger player goes into a football league team, so Championship, League 1, League 2, that the older players, the more senior players in the squad, can get a bit kind of like, who's this kid? Kind of, if you get what I mean. So like kind of the bruisers of the team are a bit like, who's this 18, 19-year-old this with a bit of tricks trying to do me? And I'm going to break his legs kind of feel. Is there anyone in like kind of your respective squads that are like that are just like, who's this kid think he is? You know, United hotshot coming in and telling me what to do kind of thing.
I didn't get that vibe from the Swans. I feel like the reason I say that is because our right back last season is Connor Roberts, obviously, and he's starting for Burnley tonight for the first time, which is, Connor Roberts, good name. But, you know, because he went, we had to fill that spot because we don't have anyone else to fill it. And I do just think that he's fit. You know, he hasn't come in and he's trying to take a position off anyone. I don't think, and he's kind of offering things that no one else in the team can offer. So at this point, I think people are really grateful for him being in the squad. I don't think there's any animosity or like, but you know, I can totally imagine it happening on occasions with academy players, you know, from wherever coming in and kind of taking over a bit. I can definitely see why that would happen.
Yeah, and is it the case obviously at Birmingham? Because at Birmingham, like I've been lucky enough, I've met Troy Deeney quite a few times, and he's always seemed, obviously I don't know what he's like on the pitch, but I imagine he's always come across as a genuine guy. Do you think player like Deeney, like Troy Deeney, is kind of the player that's almost like put his arm around Chong and tried to, you know, bring him into the squad and help him develop that way?
Well, I mean, since Troy's come in, one of his number one priorities has been getting the younger players more involved. And I mean, you can even see sort of little signs of it on the pitch and off the pitch. And off the pitch example is on Instagram the other day, Troy Deeney was making Chong jealous of his sauna at his house. So there's obviously that good relationship there anyway, and a bit of banter. He's also got that with another youngster we got on loan from Wolves with Dion Sanderson. So he's really come in and sort of got stuck in with the younger players. And there has been rumours that he's wanted to get them more involved and get them to have more of a say in the team, which is always good. I mean, we've always had quite a good youth academy anyway. And particularly more recently, obviously, producing Jude Bellingham. And our club captain that's not so much a club captain at the moment because he's not been featuring, which is Harley Dean. I get the impression that he wants to see young players succeed, but wouldn't rely on them in big moments. Because I remember when Jude scored the winner in his first game, actually, against Stoke, and Harley Dean was looking over to the bench to see that Jude was coming on. He's like, oh, why are we bringing an 18-year-old on? So we do have those sort of characters that might be that type of bruiser. But no, just so long as they come on and show their worth, then everyone will get behind them from day one. But Troy Deeney is obviously playing a massive part and was captain for the first time against Swansea for us. So long may it continue.
Yeah, definitely. I don't know why I'm bringing this up. You're not. I'm sorry. I've actually got a lot of time for Troy Deeney. His brother Ellis actually used to play for my local, which is Worcester City, when we went on the famous FA Cup run. So yeah, I've got big respect for Troy Deeney, I've got to be honest. There's a comment up there as well that he's saying about Laird Chong Garner depends on the next manager. We're going to talk about United briefly at the end of this, unfortunately, but we will discuss that at the end. But yeah, I think it is very, very dependent on who we get in. And Brown Knight, I appreciate that as well. Welcome, Jarvis. Okay, so I just want to talk to you both about kind of their attributes, really, because obviously I want to know, because I haven't really watched Chong for obviously since he was. Obviously, he had his opportunities under Ollie in the early season, but Laird is somebody I've really followed. When he was 16, he was streets ahead of everyone else. He was ahead of the likes of Brandon Williams, obviously, is now at Norwich. he was ahead of all these players because his stature was so big as a 16-year-old. He was almost bullying players in the under 23. So I'll come to you first, Amy. On it. Like, what do you see from Laird? What are his kind of best qualities as a fullback?
Well, obviously, it's funny you say that because he's probably one of the smallest now. Like, he's not massive. I think he's about, I don't know, like 5'8", maybe, about my height. So, well, his pace is the initial thing to mention for sure. He is quick. And honestly, we could probably do with someone who could match his pace over the other side because he's definitely faster. So a lot of the ball is going down his way because it is quicker. His technical ability is good. His attitude's good. He's obviously confident, but there's no air of arrogance or, which I really like. I think it must be very easy for them to get arrogant. And he's got a fantastic attitude. And I think he works really, really hard. He does come across some, against Cardiff, 6'5" defenders, bless him, and he can lose out physically sometimes. I feel he's sometimes, I would say, loses the ball a little bit too often, maybe makes the wrong decisions, but generally a very positive player, very forward-thinking, attacking-minded, good with the ball at his feet. He has got skills. He loves to step over. But, sometimes you want him to make the pass and he doesn't. But I think, that comes with age and experience, doesn't it? On, how to kind of play the game. But yeah, pace, attacking ability and attitude, probably top 3 attributes for Laird.
I think that's interesting because, like I said in I think when I was just talking about him, like I said, at 16, he was massive compared to everyone else, and he was bullying. He was absolutely bullying players at that level. He was part of that, like I said before, that kind of Gomez Greenwood group that was coming through at the time, and it was a very exciting team. Obviously now fans of the academy that watch the academy, whenever we've got Alvaro Fernandez that's coming through the academy as well. Both players, I actually think Laird and Fernandez are better. Probably shouldn't say this. I think they're going to be better than our current fullbacks. But
yeah, I think with time, if you compare Ethan to Wan-Bissaka, I think he's got more to his game, for example. But I know he's more of a right back than a wing back, whatever. But I could see him there.
Yeah, and obviously, same question to yourself, Tom. What have you seen from Chong? Because my worry has always been with Chong, his physicality. He always used to get bullied off the ball. Even at under 23s, he was getting pushed around quite a lot. Is that still a problem for him, or?
Do you know what? I was about to say, where do I even start, to be honest, sort of positivity wise, but physicality has completely improved, but only because he's using it in the right way. And I think, Amy, you will have probably noticed the amount of free kicks Chong won the other day against Swansea. Because he's using it in the right way. He's not a strong player. Don't get me wrong. He's not a strong player, but he can still hold up the ball well. It is difficult to take the ball off him. And when you do try, you normally give away a foul. So that seems to be something that's been drilled into him more so at Blues. And as much as it pains me to say, he does sort of play a bit of a Jack Grealish role in that sense. He runs well with the ball. He'll get into good areas and win set pieces. I'd say, obviously he's pacey. He's running with the ball. He's fantastic. It's hard to take it off him, and he does cover a lot of ground. Against Sheffield United, first game of the season, we lost the ball and they were on such a quick counter-attack, and he ran 60 yards to get back and make one tackle. And I was like, I've never seen this from, expecting him to be a luxury player. I've never seen this from that sort of number 10 role in a player for a long time, if ever. So his commitment to the cause is fantastic. That's just sort of a praise to his work rate again. He does get a bit tired. I'd say stamina is probably not one of his best attributes. I'd say last 15 minutes is when he just sort of gasses out. He's got nothing left to give. But yeah, I suppose you could mention his physicality. He's not the strongest, but he certainly found a better way to use it and sort of utilize it in the right situations, that's for sure. But over time, when he uses it too much, he does start to not win so many free kicks anymore, because I think the ref begins to not buy it so much. But no, overall, he has been fantastic at this level, and I've been just overall very impressed with him. His first touch does need, I suppose, touching up a bit. So No, it's just mainly positives with one or two negatives, but they are things that he could certainly grow into and learn in no time at all. And I think, the older he gets, the better he'll get at the moment because, he's got plenty of time till he'll come into his prime at that sort of 26, 27 age. So there's still a lot to learn, but the signs are there.
Yeah, definitely. Ross agree as well. I think we discussed this earlier. Tom, would you agree? You said number 10 is probably the best position for Chong at the moment.
Yeah, definitely. At the moment, anyway, number 10 is the best suited role in our system. But whenever he does play a wide role, he still shows sort of that natural instinct of a winger. And he can certainly play there, but he's definitely played his best football in that number 10 role, that's for sure.
Nice one. And I mentioned in there about he was pretty much him and Garner actually were the kind of free kick takers in the academy. Is he not on free? Is that just because you've got better free kick takers at Birmingham, or trust him with it? I guess.
I see. I'd say this to a lot of Blues fans: define the word better, because we have our regular takers, like Jeremy Bella and Gary Gardner. Gary Gardner just cannot score free kicks anymore. That seems to have gone. I mean, he missed a sitter against Swansea, an open net from about 25 yards out. He falls over and sends it over the bar. So it's like, yep, nice one, Gary. So yeah, and then Jeremy Bella hasn't scored a free kick since his very first goal for the club. So unfortunately, that tends to be the case. I think Chong has taken 2 actually and come very close, but he's not scored yet. Well, 1 yet, obviously. Otherwise, I'd have mentioned it by now. But no, the signs are there from the 2 that he's taken so far, and I'd like to see him take a few more. Set piece wise, he does seem to take a lot of sort of more out wide set piece free kicks to put a ball in. He is terrible at those, I can't lie. Every single one is just he looks like he's going to blast it high to the far post, but it's low driven and we give away the ball straight away. So I definitely like to see him in more shooting positions with a free kick, but set piece wise, delivering a ball in, no more.
This is definitely a wild suggestion. I'm going to spin this for yourself, Amy, in a second. But obviously, Tom, if you're on about Chong, I personally don't think he can. Well, I mean, Tom, what do you reckon? Whether obviously mentioned earlier, his defensive side is quite good. I personally can't see it. I've got to be honest.
Yes, I do think he could play there, but like I mentioned earlier, his stamina's not great. And with the wing backs, for me, I believe they are the hardest working players on the pitch. Especially if you have no wingers and it's sort of like either a 3 at the back and then the wing backs, or sort of a 5 at the back, whatever you want to call it. Then I do believe those wing backs work the hardest. And in our system, we do sort of play a 5 at the back with the 2 wing backs. So yeah, I think in our system and probably Swansea's as well, your hardest working players are out wide, and I just don't. Although he is hard working, it would just kill him off. I feel like he'd be finished by the 50th or 60th minute. So that's where that term luxury player comes back into the fray again, really. So no, I think he could play it, but he definitely have to sort of work on his stamina and also just managing those energy levels and using sort of his ability at the right time.
And Amy, I'll spin this slightly. Obviously, I mentioned earlier, Laird for the 23s played at centre-back quite a few times. I was just looking at your lineup versus Birmingham. It looks like Kyle Norton potentially was a centre-back for you in the back 3. Obviously, from what I remember, he was a right-back when you guys were back up in the Premier League. Can you see Laird playing centre-back at this kind of level? Because at 23s, he was a centre-back and he was okay at it. I wouldn't say his better position is definitely full-backs, but can you see him playing there as well?
I'd be very surprised, particularly in the setup we have at the moment, because we've got like Ryan Bennett and Ben Cabango, who are just sort of like chunky, hefty defenders. And I feel like in the Championship, it is a bit like that. You might be able to add Tom, but some of the defenders are huge, aren't they? They're just units.
Yeah, most of them.
And not all of them are great with the ball at their feet either. It's kind of lots of goals in the Championships have come from set pieces. You need people to get to those headers, and I don't think he would play that role. No, I can't see it happening. He has a really if Kyle Norton plays sort of on the right of the back 3, that's a really, really lovely partnership though. Kyle Norton to Ethan Laird, they've both got a lot of pace and great with the ball at their feet. But he's still kind of wiggling them around at the minute. So his centre back partner's not been 100% secure yet.
That's fair enough. Jarvis, I'm exactly with you, mate. It's football again. I'm sick of the manager, but I'm sure one of these two are going to bring it up at the end, though. So
why not?
Definitely. And Birmingham should try and. I would love to see Ahmad in the Championship. He's another player like Chong, brilliant technically, but I worry about his physicality, and I really want to see Ahmad in the Championship or League One. Well, maybe not League One, because it goes back to what I said earlier about bruises. I think if Ahmad came in, he's very, very small. I think he's only 5'3", maybe, or something like that, 5'3", 5'4". So the physicality of those leagues potentially would do him good, but he could get bullied around.
Didn't he reject Sheffield United because he didn't want to come to the Championship? Or
I think it was. He did have a move. I'm pretty sure it was either PSV or Feyenoord, and then he got injured about a week before that move went through. So unfortunate for him, really.
That's karma for not coming to the best league in the world. There we are.
It is the best league in the world.
I've heard that a lot, to be fair. I used to follow it avidly, but
it's fantastic.
Just don't follow it as much anymore as I probably should. It kind of leads me on nicely to one of my questions then. That do you think loan players from the Premier League to the Championship work for the player development? Obviously, Jesse Lingard went to Birmingham, did very well. There's been a few more examples where players have gone to the Championship and come back to Premier League clubs and done well. Amy, I'll come to yourself first. Do you feel like it works and it's good for the younger players?
Yeah, I mean, from my experience, even the last couple of years, I'm looking at Conor Gallagher. We had him for a bit. Mark Gahey, who's now with Conor Gallagher at Crystal Palace. Freddie Woodman, the goalkeeper from the last 2 seasons, he's at Newcastle. And, these people are starting now in the Prem. And to a logical mind, it just makes sense, doesn't it? If you're not getting game time, how are you going to get better? You need to go and play football. We've got a few players at Swansea who I think you need to go to League One. You need to go and, get game time. How are you going to know how to play football if you don't do it, competitively? So I mean, from where we're sat with Swans, like with the players that have come to us on loan and back out, Tammy Abraham, he was rubbish for us, but I'm sure that experience, has got him to where he needs to be. I think Conor Gallagher is like a really good example though, because he's thriving at the moment, and it's great to see. Yeah, cool, of course, and like Tom said, it's the best league in the world, so why wouldn't you want to play in it?
Tom, do you kind of share those same feelings? And what is it about the Championship then that makes it so good? And why is it good for player development? Because I mean, as United fans, or I speak to Chelsea fans, everyone's saying, like you just said, Amy, it's almost like the perfect send them to the Championship. If you ask any United fan where you'd send players on loan, it's always the Championship. Why is that, Tom? Is it because of the physicality, the pace of the games? What is it about the Championship that makes it good for these younger players?
Again, where do you start? Like, I feel like, for me personally, it's the best experience for a young player because you will literally experience everything from the real highs to the serious lows. Because you feel like in the Championship, it is fast paced, but it's also very, very physical, and you always have to be able to keep up. If you can't make it in the Championship, then there's a slim chance you're going to make it in the Premier League. If anything, the Premier League, despite there being a lot more quality up there, it's slower pace. I'd say it was actually less work. So if you're able to work in the Championship, then there's no reason why you can't be competitive in a higher division like the Premier League. So it sets you up really nicely. I think Swansea have definitely had the better share of loan players than we've had. But like you mentioned, we had Jesse Lingard for like half a season. He was fantastic. Scored 4 on his debut against Sheffield Wednesday. I remember that very well. And then, to be honest, we haven't had that many great loan players since. I mean, we've had a few flops like Carl Jenkinson from Arsenal, and we had Jake Clark-Salter, to be fair, last season and the season before on loan from Chelsea. He showed glimpses, but he's probably playing his best football now at Coventry, still on loan. So the potential's always been there for him. We had John Terrell on loan from Arsenal. He was fantastic for us, but then never made it at Premier League level. And he's just had so many injuries since that he just flopped. But now we've got Chong, and he's been fantastic so far. But some of those names that Amy mentioned for Swansea are just they were very impressive anyway. Particularly Gahey and Woodman, and Woodman.
Wow, what a player!
Yeah, exactly. Like
Yeah.
Gahey seriously relished the championship to probably the best possible way you can, and Woodman just became a penalty specialist, which is weird. So yeah, and it's hard to keep that up in a league like the Championship. So there's definitely the right clubs to go to develop at, and I think you've probably talking to two of the best clubs to do that these days, particularly Swansea, because I think you do tend to involve a lot of young players in your squad anyway. So
yeah, it's quite a big ethos at the club, I feel, with our academy and other youth players, they're such a big part of the club. Like, you look at the squad and how many have come through the academy and or have come, via a loan. Even with Steve Cooper, he won the World Cup with the under-19s England or whatever. We heard that over and over again. But it was attractive. It was attractive to those young players, and now we've got a young manager who's playing nice football. The bigger clubs must look and go, where do we want to send this player? Where and then you have to look at the clubs in the Championship, and there are definitely a few that stand out in terms of the way they play football or the history and the size of the club, etc. But yeah, I think it's a great thing to do.
100%. Yeah, I was just going to touch on quickly, actually, like like you said, young manager, it depends so much on the manager as well. And Lee Bowyer's got a good track record with young players. Obviously, it didn't work out with United youngster Levitt at Charlton. That didn't really seem to go the way. But Conor Gallagher at Charlton, even younger players like when he had Carlin Grant, look what he's gone on to do now. So definitely two good managers there that are both still young for the managerial game.
I think that's the main thing, isn't it? It's sending them to the Championship or League One is good for the players, but I think it's got to be the right team. As you mentioned there, Levitt, I actually think is one of our best midfielders in our academy, and it hasn't quite worked out with the loan deals we've sent him on. I think he's over at Dundee at the moment, which he's doing okay up there, but obviously Scottish League is completely different to what he'd experienced in the Premier League. Obviously, we've got Galbraith out at Doncaster at the moment, doing quite well. And we've got quite a few still left in the academy that I would like to see loaned out, because they are. There's an interesting thing with the academy where you kind of get stuck in this thing of being too good for the 23s, but not good enough to get into the first team. And we've got Hannibal, Fernandez, you've got Alanga that are just too good for the 23s, but not quite there yet for the first team. So loan moves, like you said, to teams in the Championship. As long as they play well, we've seen obviously James Garner at Forest. Obviously went back there, seems to be doing quite well. And I think when we said we had a show on the academy a couple of weeks ago, just because players don't make it at United, younger players, that's not a failure of a career. If a player comes through a top 6 side academy and then go on to have a career in the Championship, League One or League Two, that's still a successful career. They've still made it as a professional footballer. And there is this kind of perception that just because they don't make it at United, they flopped. They haven't. They still would make it as a professional footballer, and that's ultimately what it's about. So just quickly on that then, so what is kind of the feeling amongst the fans? If you look towards the end of the season, if they carry on playing it the way that they are, would you want them back on, 3 options really. Would you send them back to United and say, right, that's that? Would you keep them permanently, or try and keep them permanently, or would you try and bring them back for another year's loan deal?
I think with, I've seen on social media already, people saying about Ethan, they've already fallen in love with him. And it's always the way, isn't it? You get a lone player and everyone falls in love with them. But I think the future could be bright because, he worked with Russell at MK Dons and it worked. And, from seeing lots of the press conferences with Russell when he came in, he was always talking about this one player who he had to bring with him. He was always talking, obviously it turned out to be Ethan Laird. And whether it's with Swansea or whether, Russell Martin eventually moves on to maybe a bigger club, I can see him going with him, to be honest. He obviously works really, really well under the way that he coaches. And he obviously has a lot of belief in Ethan, whether that's for United or, for wherever Russell is. But I'd love him to stay. He fits what we're trying to do perfectly. And if we can do what we want to do, which is hold on to Russell Martin for a good few years, there's no reason he couldn't stay, but it obviously all depends on other offers. But I also worry sometimes loan players maybe go back too soon, or, go elsewhere a little bit too soon. Like, I always thought about Dan James. Like, I always wondered whether maybe one more season with the Swans, and then it would have worked better at United. You can always think like that, I suppose. But I hope he doesn't go too soon when he's not ready. I'd love to keep him on if we could.
That's a really good point you made there about players that come back too soon. I think there's a few players like that. I mean, you look at United. I mean, the United fan base is quite possibly the worst at the moment, and I'm quite happy to admit that. But you've got people saying, "Oh, our midfield options. Oh, let's just bring Hannibal in. Let's get James Garner back off loan and stick him in the midfield." It's like you can't just rush players' development. There's occasions where you've got like a Mason Greenwood who is ahead of his time in a one-off example. And I think some fans cling on to that sometimes and go, yeah, everyone can be like him, get him in the first team. You've got to let these players develop. So Tom, obviously, same question to yourself. What would you do with Chong come the end of the season?
I'd like him to come back to Blues permanently, obviously. I feel like that's... I've probably given off that vibe already, anywho. Do I think that's possible? 70-30, probably 30% possible, 70% not. Because I don't know, to be fair. It depends when his contract would expire, whether we could get him on a free. But yeah, no, with Chong, he's definitely going to have a price tag after this season, that's for sure.
Yeah.
And it wouldn't surprise me if he does come back to the Championship, but I do feel like he'd probably go to a club that's either a big spender or a promotion favourite. But if we could convince him to come back, then great. I'd literally bite your hand off for that. I couldn't put it any other way. And I think Ethan Laird, there's definitely a very good chance he'd go back to Swansea. Because fullbacks wise at United, although it's not looked pretty at the moment, you get a different manager come in. You never know. Aaron Wan-Bissaka could just turn into the player he was when he first started at Palace, and he broke onto the scene. And Luke Shaw, we saw what he's capable of in the World Cup. So not the World Cup, the Euros even. But I'm sure we'll see it in the World Cup as well. Let's be honest. It just and obviously with Luke Shaw, he's so on and off at United. 1 minute he's the best left back in the world. Next minute he's a fascinating
one to watch, isn't he?
Yeah, he's all of a sudden not. And I saw something the other day about him having an argument with Harry Maguire. Is there any truth in that or not? And I heard the word fridge passed about. What's that actually about?
Perfectly honest, I wouldn't believe anything that comes. We had a show yesterday where we kind of talked about the media circus around United at the minute. I mean, it was getting ridiculous on Monday and Tuesday. The stories that were coming out.
Oh, yeah, the Paul Pogba one. I was like,
you had Pogba, you had Van der Beek.
You always have to grab your bag of salt and just get ready to pinch.
Yeah, it's just been like United always generate clicks anyway. I think there is a stat that United are the most written about sporting team per calendar year, just because it gets clicks. And like I said, the amount, I wouldn't believe half of what comes out about United. But I do agree with what you're saying off kind of fullbacks. It really, someone made it in the comments earlier, it really does depend on who we get next as manager. Because I mean, me personally, I've already mentally checked out that Ollie is going. Yeah. And if it is someone like a Conte, Wan-Bissaka doesn't get in that team, and then he's going to be looking at an attacking wing back because that's the kind of system he plays. So it really does depend on who we sign. I think if anyone's going to come back to United out of the two, it will be Laird. I can see Chong moving on just because like I said, we signed Pellistri, we signed Ahmad. There's so many players ahead of him at United currently. Yeah. So if there's a player that will come back, it will be Laird. And I couldn't see Chong moving to Birmingham on a permanent, I've got to be honest, but I can definitely see him going. I could see him at like a
Fulham or a Bournemouth.
Yeah.
Bournemouth always seem to like to scout our players. So
they're always looking at Fulham. They always want our players, and we just go away.
It's like, just get lost. I mean, to be honest, as a United fan, I think you'd if you wanted to look at any Championship players, I think Ben Cabango is worth a look. I love him as a centre back.
Yeah,
I think there's a lot of promise there with him.
We could do with some centre backs at the minute the way we're defending. We'll talk about that in about 5 minutes. Just bringing up this comment about he's talking there about Makeda bursting onto the scene. He did, and then he went on to have. He just wasn't great, was he?
Fun stat: his best goal scoring season was at Birmingham City. There you go.
There you go. Learn something every day.
Says it all.
Okay, we're gonna have to. I'm going to put you two on the spot first, and actually, well, before we wrap up, we'll talk about respective teams and obviously the United situation. But I'm going to come to you two first on kind of your predictions on where. So for yourself, Amy, where do you think Swansea are going to finish this year? And obviously, respected for new fans that obviously don't watch Swansea.
Yeah.
Where your prediction is that a good season in your opinion?
Yeah, sure. So, well, obviously, the last 2 seasons we finished in the playoffs, so we've been high up the table and getting higher every year. I think we had like a 9th, a 6th, and a 4th or something. That was the way we've gone. But this year it's different because we've had a big overhaul of manager style, coaching staff, players, and honestly, I can see us sitting in about 10th, which I think a lot of people would say that's not good. You know, we're used to being sort of quite close to the top, but I do think that if it all works how I think it might work, we'd be looking then at next year really, really pushing on for promotion. I don't think that's going to happen this year. I think Fulham, Bournemouth, West Brom, they're just too good. You know, we could talk about the money and parachute payments and everything. That's a whole other podcast. But I think if we could finish in a comfortable sort of 10th, 8th position and then really, really push on next season, I think that's sort of what is realistic for us at the moment.
Yep, and same for yourself, Tom.
Yeah, for me, sorry, but is my connection gone a bit, or is it all right?
It did for a second. I think you're back now.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, sorry about that. It's probably my booster playing up, but yeah. Anyway, it's weird because at the start of the season I was probably a lot more positive. I'm still fairly positive now, but I think at the moment Blues fans just don't want a relegation battle because we're so used to it at this point. I feel like somewhere between 12th and 14th is where you'll see Blues this season. You know, I would be happy with a 14th place finish because I feel like it's really is sort of a building block for us, and that's all we need right now. We just need somewhere to start, and we need something to show for as well, to show that we're moving in the right direction, and we've needed that for a while. So hopefully this season is that season. We've proven that we can beat good teams, and we just need to be more consistent now. I think with Swansea, you know, you're in a massive transitional period compared to the sort of style you were playing the last 2 seasons. So I was going to say you'd be about 9th or 10th, and then next season you'll really push on. So yeah, two very interesting teams to talk about at the moment. I say Swansea and Birmingham, to be fair.
Yeah, and obviously Swansea. Correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't Swansea lose out to Brentford in the playoffs last year?
Yeah,
Didn't they?
I don't like Brentford. If you can, yeah,
I don't like Brentford. I think they're tin pot. So there you go.
No one likes Brentford in the Championship, and everyone's hailing them in the Prem. So we're like, just stay up there.
Stay there. We don't want you back.
I was going to say, yeah, we rave about their style of play on this channel quite a lot. So so that's interesting. Brown Knight, we did just cover this. I don't know. We don't need to go over it again, but whether he goes back there permanently, I don't. I think the consensus was he probably wouldn't go back there permanently, but I don't think Tom would say no.
I did say ages ago, I feel like the only way we get Chong back on a permanent is if we got promoted by some strange world that we live in. If we manage to pull that off, we won't. You never know. Anything can happen. I remember when Villa went from 16th to winning the playoffs. So it's not impossible. And then obviously you've got Norwich as well. I remember when they finished 18th the season before under Daniel Farke. Season after they go and win the league. So you can always have a massive turnaround in football. Do I see it happening at Blues anytime soon? No.
Well, you just mentioned Norwich are a team that can go back down as well. They're not. I tweeted the other day. I refuse to believe.
I'm so sick of them. I hate going to Carrow Road. It's too far.
Yeah, it's and obviously we were actually at St Andrews with the women's team not so long back. St Andrews, Birmingham away.
I watched that game. It was on Sky.
What's going on with the stadium there at the moment? Obviously, the lower tier. We were told when we went in, they were like, "Oh, yeah, you can't sit there. It's health and safety or something like that."
The weekend as well, yeah.
Yeah, a lot of people are so confused whenever they come to St Andrews. They're like, "What's going on? Why isn't it open? You can't fill your stadium."
We should say that a few times, I think.
Yeah, right. You do get that. But it's at the moment it's frustrating because they knew about it 8 months before the start of the new season. But what's the issue is an asbestos issue, and it was in the Tilton and the Cop, so sort of the more modern stands, the one that's joined together. We've only the upper Tilton got open first. So yeah, it's like, yes, great, cool. We get a fair bit of atmosphere there, and then the upper Cop open for the Swansea game for the first time, which is where I sit. So I was delighted that I finally got my seat back. And then, it paid off atmosphere-wise. We actually managed to generate something for a change. So, yeah, I don't think the lower areas will actually be ready till the end of the season, to be honest. It's a long process, but it should have been done ages ago. And classic Blues fashion, we haven't done anything about it. So... there we are, but it is what it is. I'm all for and prepared every single team that comes to St Andrews this season. Your ground's too big for you, this, that, and the other, because we've had it from pretty much every team. Yeah, but literally every team that's come down this season to St Andrews has sang something like it. So yeah, but unfortunately, it's an asbestos issue, and there's not much we can do about it.
So that's why us and a few of the other women's fans are ill then. Ever since we came away from the ground, is that what's going
asbestos poisoning? I'm sorry about that.
I'll just quickly bring up this question. Either of you can answer it before we have to talk about United for the final section. I don't know the answer to that question. I don't know if either of you two know the answer to that one.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty sure roughly it's around about somewhere between 40 million and 50 million you actually win from winning the playoffs. Yeah. So, it's whether it's higher for actually winning the league. You like to imagine so, but I don't actually think it is. I think you actually win more from winning through the playoffs. A lot of that being down to ticket sales and revenue and all that jazz and going to Wembley. So, if you win the playoffs, you definitely make a lot of money from it. Because I remember back in, I say I remember, but I'd only just been born at the time. I watched obviously highlights and stuff. And when we got promoted through the playoffs in 2002, it was called the £40 million penalty kick. So that was how much we won in 2002. So it's probably gone up by then. Since there's a lot more attention to the championship. So it's a fair bit, but it won't be as much as getting relegated from the Premier League's worth. So yeah, there you are.
So it might be worth the relegation.
Yeah.
Speaking of, that's a nice little segue onto Man United, because we could be getting relegated the way we played at the weekend. So, I don't really want to talk about this, but I'm going to have to. It's a United channel, so we're going to talk United for the last kind of few minutes. Yeah. I'll come to each of you then on just where you think, from an outsider's perspective, kind of looking in, because obviously as United fans are going to be slightly biased to our own club, as every fan is. Yeah. What do you where do you feel the problems are at United at the minute? Because some people say Ollie, some people say the players. I think it's a mixture of both. I said after the Liverpool game, I think Ollie's tactics lost us the game, but the players got us embarrassed, because I do feel that's what ultimately happened. But I mean, Amy, speak to me. Where do you think United are at the moment, and where do you think we're going to finish?
Yeah, it's always a weird one, because I don't know, what's the balance of the players and the manager? Like, I don't know that. I can't answer that. But there's an obvious lack of tactics when I've watched United play. But every time I've watched them, there's been mistakes, particularly in the last few fixtures. Like, I hate to bring him up, but Harry Maguire's just been all over the place. Like, I'm watching his positioning. I'm thinking, what do you do? You could have stopped that, because you're in the wrong place. And that's not Ollie's fault, surely. Like, yeah, he'll be told to do certain things, but he's a footballer of like high quality. He should know better. Do you know what I mean? I think I don't think like the players that are on the pitch for like the starting 11 are quite the right players. Like Jadon Sancho's being lost. I don't know. It doesn't quite work. Like I say, I've watched United since I was young, and that identity isn't there. but there's definitely the potential. I mean, you don't know it. Next week it could turn around and it could be amazing. It could just click. You don't know. But there's definitely, first of all, an attitude change from the players for sure, because they look like they can't be, whether they're being lazy or whether they're angry and frustrated. I'm sure they are. I think if they can switch on, there's definitely a chance to turn it around without sacking him. But I don't know. That's my
I don't know. Like I said earlier, I'd mentally checked out that he'd been sacked, especially after this is one of the reasons we moved the show on Monday, because we were preparing for that sacking, everything that was coming out. And then Tuesday, it's like the club are releasing podcasts with Wes Brown, and they're doing all kinds of things and preparing for Tottenham. And it was like, so what's going on here? Like,
not on now. They're obviously giving him a bit longer. And that's I believe then that's sort of up to the players as well to switch on if that's what they want, and to make the change and start moving forwards.
Yeah, I think personally, Ollie has probably been told he's going in the international break, and that we just, as a club, because we're run by that's a show on its own, because of the way we're run. I don't think they were prepared for it to get this bad, and I think that the owners are not ready, and now they're going, oh shit, now we've got to try and get a new manager in, and they've gone, right, Ollie, you've got till after the City game. It's international break, new manager will come in then we've got an easy run after that, funnily enough. So I think they're probably saying to Ollie, you've got these 3 games, you're getting sacked regardless. So Tom, where do you...
It's quite sad, I must say.
It is, because I really feel sorry for Ollie. I do think he needs to go now, because I think he's lost the players, but I hate the way, and someone's just said it there, that the toxic fan base, it is the worst. The last few days have been the worst. If I didn't have to come on and promote shows and things like that and do the kind of things I enjoy, I would have come off Twitter ages ago, because it's been the last few days has shown why I don't like most of our fan base. Tom, where do you stand on United at the minute? Can you see us? Come on, give me some positivity. Can you see us turning it around? And
yes,
something this year.
Yes, definitely. I think there's so many points you can cover over this, and I think the fan base in itself is a key point there. I can understand turning on Ole Gunnar Solskjaer on a managerial point of view, but some things that you see that are said are just unbelievable. You should never treat a manager of your club that way, but especially not a legend in a sense. Because let's be honest, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is a legend at Manchester United. And that, unfortunately, due to the current situation, is being ruined, and will take some time to heal. But, a lot of the Man United fan base are 11 or 12-year-olds that have on their Twitter have a profile picture of Mason Greenwood, and their name will be Marcus Martial or, I don't know, Anthony Rashford. Because, unfortunately, that is what you get. And they're happy to say anything because they don't really care. So there's a lot of things that need to be sorted out, but team wise, I agree with you in the sense that it's probably the manager and the players, and I think the sooner Ollie goes, the better. The bloke couldn't make it work at Cardiff. Why was he ever going to make it work at Manchester United? It's a very big difference. Don't get me wrong, I actually don't think he's done that bad a job in sort of perspective wise. I think he's got Man United out of this slump that they were in after losing, Sir Alex, because they could never ever make it click. So they are in a half decent position, and they have a lot of players, but unfortunately a lot of those players are very much individuals and luxury players. And I'm sure you've heard it from plenty of people, there's too many individuals in that team, but it's true. And, Sir Alex managed to win the league with Tom Cleverley and Danny Welbeck. Wow. So, realistically, it doesn't take star players to win all the time. You need a team, because it's a team game at the end of the day. You won't win with individuals. You have to win as a team. And, if Sir Alex Ferguson can win with players like that and Anderson, there are so many random United players that were so bang average that still managed to win the league. Wow. Yeah, literally. It's like it just proves that you need a team. You don't need individuals. And that's where Man United have gone so wrong since Sir Alex left, unfortunately. But there's a team there that could achieve great things if you can make it click. And Ollie won't make it click because he's not a top tier Premier League manager, and he never ever will be. And that's the problem, really. And I think you've got to get in like a Conte or a Zidane. It's, you know, that's those are your only real options, to be honest, at this point. I think Conte would be better suited because he's been there and done it in the Premier League, and Zidane doesn't actually rate English football. So yeah, no, I do think you're gonna have to change your manager if you want any more positivity. But I feel like if the players knew Ollie was on his way out, then you never know, they might try and sort of play him out gracefully. But would it surprise me if they didn't know? But you know, the quality is undeniable that you've got in that squad. For Christ's sake, you've got
amazing.
Cristiano Ronaldo. Like it doesn't get much more quality than that. So yeah, there's positives, but Ollie has to go, unfortunately. But I do like Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. I think he's a good person, but unfortunately, nice people don't tend to make good managers. Ask Gianfranco Zola when he was at Birmingham City. So there you go.
Yeah, I think I agree with pretty much what both of you have said, and your assessments of United at the minute. It's not a great time because, like I said, I'm a huge fan of Ollie. The turnaround he has done for the club. I mean, it's toxic now, but the toxic environment that was left by Jose, what Ollie has done in turning it around, building a squad. I said the other day on the show that I think Ollie is probably better suited to players that are up and coming rather than the superstars. Yeah. That's why we came second with it, you know, with like Andres Pereira and Lingard and these kind of players, and now he's got superstars. It's almost like he can't deal with that. So Brown.
And then he subbed Greenwood off at half time. Like, why do that? Why do that?
Angelo's always on the bench every time I flick the TV on. You know, if you're going to buy someone like him, like you can use him, try him in a different position. Even I don't care.
Speaking of different positions, people are going to think I'm on Karthik's payroll. Obviously, you two have never been on the channel before. Brown, I am going to do it. I don't even care. So pretty much, we've started a movement on All for United, led by Karthik, and that most of us won't join. It's been on Radio Manchester. It's been retweeted all over the place. I'm going to bring it up just so you know what I'm referring to. Phil Jones in the 6. I've managed to get it in, Karthik. You'll be happy with that. Do you just a quick yes or no? Do you think we could see Phil Jones in two questions? One, in a Man United shirt anytime soon, and two, is he a midfield option? He played there against Real Madrid a few years ago. Well, a long time ago now.
Why not?
For God's sake, let's not kid ourselves here. Phil Jones is barely Championship level these days, let alone Premier League. I think he'd be lucky to get into a team in the Championship at the moment. I think he's just... Yeah, even if you look at his general physique, he's nowhere near the fitness levels he needs to be at. But that's not, I wouldn't say that's his own fault. He has been sort of outcasted, and there was obviously potential for him there back in the day. But every single manager that's ever come in at United is not the sort of manager that would like Phil Jones in that sense. I think Mourinho tried with Phil Jones a little bit, but it just didn't work out. And I feel like, unfortunately, Phil Jones is just a loser. Not as a person, but as a football player, he is just naturally a losing footballer. You know, he might be a really nice bloke, but you know, attitude-wise and the way he plays football, he just is a loser in the game. And I don't think things will ever turn around for him at United. But it would be a good laugh to see him back in the side. Why not? Let's laugh about it, but the bloke couldn't even handle Derby County in the Cup a few years ago, for God's sake.
I mean, we can't get any worse, so maybe it's a possibility we might see.
Get Fred and McTominay off that pitch and try something new. Do you know what I mean? You've got to try something. You've got to try
Phil Jones at striker.
Why not? That would be nice. Can you imagine?
Oh, don't make that go viral as well. Bye.
Ronaldo in top 2. Love it.
Right, we're going to wrap it up there. Karthik will be proud. Before we do wrap it up, I'll come to each of you. Amy, do you want to speak to us a little bit about this Her Game 2 as well?
Yes, sure.
And obviously shout out any socials that you want to shout out. Where can we find you? And obviously that Her Game 2 movement as well.
Yeah, cool. So we started the movement back in May, and it was basically a group of sort of female football fans, mainly of the men's game, receiving, you know, some of the guys have YouTube accounts, some of them work in media and football, some of them deliver football workshops, you know, or they're just fans like me. We all sort of receive various sort of comments regularly, and we sort of kind of came together, decided something needs to be done. And since then, I mean, it's been amazing. We've partnered with I think about 18 clubs in the Championship League 1 and 2 now, which is amazing. We're kind of making people aware of what's going on, how to report things at the ground. You know, we're putting money into grassroots female football. You know, we're doing so much stuff. It's too much to sort of just, you know, give you. But our website is hergame2.co.uk. All of our socials are just hergame2. Come and see the clubs we've partnered with and the work we're doing. It's amazing. And one day, Man United will partner with us. And it'll be a wonderful day when that happens. So, yeah, it's all good stuff.
Brilliant. Yeah, definitely go and check that out. And I'm assuming that's your Twitter handle, isn't it, that you've got on display there as well.
Yeah.
Brilliant. And Tom, obviously for yourself, where can we find you? Obviously the Blues Focus podcast as well, if you want to give that a shout.
There's a few places, to be honest. I'm I'm on all sorts of podcasts these days. You've got the Blues Daily, which I do sort of a weekly roundup show on with a lad called James, and then there is the Blues Focus podcast with Carl and John. Always a good laugh. I've recently started up my own sort of pages that I'm going to sort of kickstart soon. The links to those are in my bio on Twitter, and then my Twitter handle is T_Oxland276. So that's it from me, really. But yeah, do be sure to keep an eye out if you fancy it. Also, I love the Her Game 2 kits, by the way.
Oh, cool, isn't it?
Yeah, I thought they were quite cool.
Shirt come out, and they'll be coming back on sale again before Christmas, I think. So I'll make sure to push that to you.
Yeah, nice one. I might have to speak to you backstage actually about something on that as well. But yeah, definitely go and check out everything that was just mentioned there. While we're doing shout outs, the All for United Women's channel, definitely go and check that out as well. All for United WFC. We've got a lot of content over the next few days. Obviously, if you haven't seen, we are the team over on the women's channel, including a few of us in the men's channel, sponsoring a player from FC United of Manchester. So helping out there. They're currently in tier 3, so we're helping out. Promoting her and promoting the team. Me and John watch our local Starbridge Women's as well. They're in tier 5, so we're trying to promote them and do all kinds of things. So go and check those guys out over there. Tactical preview for Spurs. If you really want to watch, the Spurs game on Saturday, we got that preview coming tomorrow. Timeline talks back Friday and a reaction show, which is going to be fun on Saturday.
Spurs is just as much a mess as you are, to be honest, but both just as bad. So it should be an entertaining watch.
Entertaining for a neutral, stressful for United, I think is going to be the word. So yeah, go and check all of those out. Make sure you like and subscribe, and see you guys soon.